thank you, and I thank all of you for being here today, for taking your lunchtime to learn a little bit more about our topic, which is how to survive an earthquake at work and how to be safe. And so we're going to talk about three different things: what to do before, how do you get prepared, and that's probably our biggest piece, is how are we prepared prior to an earthquake, what to do during an earthquake, and then what should you be doing after an earthquake to maximize your survival. I'm going to go ahead and just to kind of set the mood, I want to show a video here.
It's a sunny morning in Southern California. Across the region, 7.5 million people are busy at work. Several 100,000 of them are commuting to jobs in different counties, far from where they live. Over 200,000 commuters work and reside on opposite sides of the San Andreas Fault. Today, these families and many others across the region will be separated. 1,800 people will die. 53,000 people will be injured. And $213 billion in damage will occur. It's 10 a.m. The largest earthquake to hit Southern California in modern times has just begun. Some people react appropriately, others don't. In the intense shaking, nearly 1,500 buildings collapse. Infrastructure is severely compromised, and 300,000 buildings suffer significant damage. The rupture travels 200 miles northwest along the San Andreas Fault, violent shaking lasting as long as 2 minutes in some areas. Finally, the earthquake is over. Many of the lifelines of Southern California have been disrupted. A large number of people are trapped in collapsed buildings. Over 1,600 fires start, some turning into super conflagrations. Millions of people are trying to use their phones, causing the system to become overloaded. In the months ahead, there will be tens of thousands of aftershocks. Residents will struggle to recover from the earthquake. There will be no water for weeks or months, and no electricity. Traveling from point to point within the city will be extremely difficult, and 255,000 people will be displaced from their homes. We are all in this together. We will suffer the consequences if we don't do our part right now. How quickly life gets back to normal after this disaster is up to you and those around you. Your level of personal preparedness will determine your quality of life after the quake. It's a good idea to have a fire extinguisher, a first aid kit, and enough water for each person in your household to have at least 1 gallon of water a day for 3 days. Have an emergency plan. Decide now where you will meet your family after an earthquake. Make sure there's a person out of town you can contact to let your loved ones know that you're okay. Homeowners should be sure to bolt their house to its foundation. Consider whether earthquake insurance makes sense for you as part of your financial plan. Even if you're not a homeowner, you can secure your personal possessions against earthquake damage. Preparedness is not only for the home, but also for business. Be sure that your company has emergency plans for a major earthquake. Empower yourself and your family. Be prepared.
Okay, now that's just to kind of set the scene, not to be an alarmist, because it is certainly survivable, but a lot of the damage and things that will occur afterwards are going to be related to fires probably. Injuries and deaths aren't necessarily going to mean that buildings are falling down on people, but from the actions that they do afterwards, okay, and how safe and how much you prepare. So how many of you have been to some of the lunch and learns already on the big one? Okay, a few of you. All right, so what we're going to concentrate more is what to do at work. So obviously you want to be able to secure your space before an earthquake. We're going to talk about more of these, but being personally prepared, knowing what to do, and practicing what you're doing, because all of that, I think, like kind of the Boy Scout motto is be prepared. The more that we do on that end, things will just fall in place for us afterwards. So let's talk about securing your space first. What does your office look like? Hopefully it doesn't quite look like this guy's office here, but what's likely to happen? In an earthquake, we're going to have a hard time finding this guy. He's going to have all his paperwork as an avalanche on him. But what does your cubicle or your office look like? So just kind of think back, envision, how safe is it? Okay. Or does it look like this? Okay. Nice, neat, so what can we do to secure our office space? What kinds of things do you think we can do to secure your office space? Okay, can they get underneath they can get underneath their desk, okay? Furniture, what can we do with furniture? It can be bolted, certain kinds of furniture can be bolted to the walls, like what, shelves, bookcases, file cabinets. What about heavy, large objects that we might have? Where's the best place for them? Either on the lower shelves or on the ground, or if they must be on a desk or something, are we securing them to that desk? So let's take a few things of earthquakes. In the 1971 earthquake in San Francisco, which was a 6.6 magnitude, this was obviously looks like either some kind of bookcase or cabinet shelf where it was not bolted onto the wall, it was not secure, and it fell over on the chair. Luckily, that person wasn't sitting there, or they would have had, obviously, a head injury. If you look at this one, the computer monitor just slid right off of the desk. It was just sitting right on there. How many of you have your monitor secure? Okay, either by a pad that's sticky or some kind of adhesive, kinds of things that you could put on there. Their CPU on the floor, that looks fine. So where is your tower for your computer? Is it on your desk? Is it laying down? Is it upright? And how secure? What's the likelihood of it falling during an earthquake? Metal cabinets, okay? These two metal cabinets, they just both fell right over, just knocked over. And again, the way that it falls is going to be dependent on the movement of the earthquake. Is it moving like this? Is it shaking side to side? You don't necessarily know which way it will move. But what do you think could have been done to maybe secure these file cabinets? Any ideas? Bolt them together. If they cannot be bolted to the wall behind it, you can bolt these two together, so at least there's less likelihood that both of them will tip over, but they'll be secured against each other. So that's one way to help stabilize it. Other thing is just also, what about the file cabinet drawers themselves? Sometimes, how many of you have had a file cabinet where it doesn't quite latch all the way? Okay, those can be a hazard, particularly if they're on the top drawers, because what's going to happen? The top drawer, they're going to pull out, they'll be top heavy, and unless they're bolted, they're likely to fall over. Or maybe it's near you where you're sitting, and it's going to hit you on the head as they come out. So again, making sure that those file cabinets, that they latch appropriately, that the drawers close. Okay, now this one. Is there room to get under this desk? Unfortunately, I actually see a lot of desks like this. As part of our division, we do our safety checks, our walkthrough in the division, and there's some people that they just kind of collect everything. And that's okay, but let's put it in a space where we can actually get under the desk to protect ourselves. And why do we want to get under the desk? Because that's the best place to provide protection for us, for our physical body, our head, during an earthquake. Here's another one. Lots of stuff right underneath that desk. I actually did one inspection one time where she said, put a little piece of paper that says, do not put anything underneath the desk. This is for earthquake. Great. That was her way of reminding her or reminding anybody else, don't put anything there. This one, there's barely even space for this person to even walk over into there. But what would be a concern in this one? Not only can they not get underneath their desk, what else? These are probably going to fall over, all this stuff here, fall over. But when they need to evacuate, what's going to happen? They're probably going to fall. Then they'll end up with a sprained ankle or injuring themselves some way. And so they end up being a victim instead of being safe. Same thing with this one. If you think about, what about some of this stuff here? Is this likely to stay there, or was it likely to end up on the floor with all these boxes and causing an issue of the pathway, how to get out to evacuate? So again, think about what your personal space looks like and what can you do to make it safer. Okay, so what about this one? What kinds of things could we do to make this office be more secure or a safer place for the person who's there? Could be. No, this is actually looks like it's leaning a little bit. But let's start off with right here. What could we do with this? Fasten it to the wall. Okay. I don't know if you can see right here. Can you see these right here? All these wires. I'd be concerned about as things are moving. Would I get caught in the wire as I'm trying to get out? Or the wheels of my chair get caught as I'm trying to move around in there? What about monitors? Securing those. Let's look at things on the wall. Okay, how are they held on there on the wall? Sometimes you have those little strips that you can hang, it just sticks on the wall itself and it hangs there, versus is it nailed in there? Is there either a stud or some kind of insertion where it's less likely to fall off? So we want to mean that anything that we're hanging is not going to come off and be a projectile in our office to hit us in the head. So we want to make that safe. All these kinds of things here, the towers or stacks of different kinds of things. Again, are they going to fall over? And so look at where you're putting the papers on your desk or behind you, wherever. Are they all over the place and they're going to cause you a problem? Or is it secure enough or closed for us? Okay, other areas are hallways. Okay, and pretty much our hallways in general, the hallways here, the hallways in ECW, they're pretty clear. But I want you to think about the passageways in your cubicle areas, in your office, whereas on the inside areas where we're walking around, how open and clear of clutter are those? This one actually is from a school, pretty similar to what the district office used to look at where I used to work. Stuff, boxes in the middle, in the hallways and stuff. And so if I had to evacuate that, what's the likelihood a lot of this stuff would be falling over and blocking my passageway? Okay. Obviously, this is what we want, something that's clear. Exit ways. Do you know where your exit ways are? Okay, so if you close your eyes, can you imagine what is my exit route from my office and how am I going to get out there? Are there obstacles for me to get through there? What if I can't get up? What if I can't walk? Can I crawl through the area? Can I get through the area anyway? Or is something going to be blocking my way? So obviously, this is more what we want. Okay. How many of you have little knickknacks or things that are on your desk? Or little displays or photograph or anything like that? You want to also use something to hold it there. So again, so it doesn't become a projectile or something that's moving and hitting you. So earthquake putty. That's just one brand, all different kinds of things, but simple thing. And it actually does work really well, so that if you put it on the bottom of whatever you may have on your desk, if you lift that up, it's going to hold that there. It is removable. You can remove it. So it's not permanently affixed to that. But that's one way, if you want to have things in your office displaying things, is to make sure that's not going to be hitting you as well. Okay, so that's just securing your space. So how many of you can say, my space is very secure, I'm not going to have any barriers, and nothing's going to be hitting me as I'm trying to get underneath my desk, and I can get underneath my desk? How many of you can say that? Only about 3, okay? So if not, you do have some work. I'm telling you, you have some work to go back and do on your office and look at it from a different perspective, is what can you do to make it safer? But the big thing that you also want to do, besides making your space secure, is to be personally prepared. How many of you think that you are prepared for a major earthquake? One, maybe a couple people, okay. So not only do you want to be prepared at home, but you want to be prepared in your car and or at work. So that can be one of the both. Either you have your supplies in your car or in your office somewhere. But I want you to think about driving to and from work. Think of the route that you drove to work today, okay? Or how you drove home yesterday. Let's say how you drove home yesterday. I want you to discuss with your neighbor, how many miles do you live away from work? Do you take a freeway? How many bridges, underpasses do you go through? Okay, I want you to talk with your neighbor about how many miles, freeways, bridges, and underpasses. Okay, how many of you are driving 20 miles or more? Okay, 25 miles or more? 30? 35?
Wow.
40?
Chris, find another job.
How far are you driving?
It's like 39, 40.
39 to 40 miles. Okay. So even if those of you who are even 10 miles or more, okay, more than 5 miles, what is the likelihood that you're going to be able to drive home? Okay. Think about it. So we have an earthquake, a major earthquake. That means our traffic lights are going to be out. If you're taking any freeways, if you particularly they have any overpasses or underpasses that you're going through, even though many of them have been retrofitted and they are safe, they are still going to need to be inspected to make sure that our transit ways are safe, okay? And so roads may be closed. There might be debris from other things that are blocking the roads, chimneys that have fallen, trees, power lines or anything like that. So how many of you think you can drive home easily? Probably not, okay? So that really goes back to, are you personally prepared and ready to shelter in place? Because you might decide, yeah, I can probably get a certain point. At a certain point, you're going to be released from work to leave. And when you do leave, are you going to hang out for a few days there? Or are you going to attempt to leave? And when you do, maybe you're able to drive part of the way. Maybe you can't up until a certain point, and then you may have to actually leave your car and try going on foot. Okay, so it brings up a lot of questions. So if you do, when you are released to leave, and you do try to drive, and if you're not able to make it home, what should you do if you decide to leave? Do we want to leave a note on your car? And what would we want to put on a note? Where you're going? Well, first of all, your name, the date and time that you're leaving, and your expected destination, what direction you're heading. Because you may be going home, your home may be this way, but you to say, the place where we gather back with my family might be at grandparents' house, which is maybe a different direction. And so we want to know, what direction are you going? Okay? So you do want to leave a note of some kind so we know what the expected route was. But we also want to have some personal supplies in your car. So this is where a car kit is really important. And you have a list, and we'll go through some of the things, but you have a copy of a list of some suggested things to put in your kit. So what do you need to be prepared? Obviously, we want part of this kit. We want to have something that's in our car all the time, not taking it in and out, and something that's easy to carry. So it could be in anything that you put it in, a pillowcase. It could be a duffel bag or something. But what I like in particular is this one, because a backpack has straps, so that if you do decide to walk, you're not having to carry something in your arms, but you could easily put it on, strap it on, and you have your hands free to be able to go out and walk. A big component is water. And there are different ways that you can put water. The amount of water that you want per person, in general rule of thumb, is 1 gallon of water per person per day. Now, you don't necessarily have to carry it, but you might have a lot in your car. So you may or may have to determine, do I want to walk away from my car? Can I carry everything? How much do I want to take with me? If you have the water bottles, the kind that we can buy at the drugstore, those are fine. But those only last for about 6 months. So if you're using that, you want to be swapping that out every 6 months because the plastic starts to deteriorate. These ones you can buy at various vendor stores, anything for emergency preparedness, so even camping, things like that. And these packages or these pouches are actually good for about 5 years. So if you're looking for a long term and you don't want to have to worry about changing things out, that's a route you can go to. Otherwise, these are fine, but only for 6 months at a time. Lights, okay, particularly if it's dark, you want to have some kind of lighting, so some kind of flashlight. How many of you have a flashlight in your office? Okay. Great to see that. So you want a flashlight in your office, and you want it someplace where it's easily to grab. I had the circumstance one time where the electricity went out in my previous office in my district, and I knew where my flashlight was at. I knew where to go for it in an emergency. I was in an office with no windows, so it was pitch black, could not see. Went to grab my flashlight where I knew I always keep it. It was in there, it was in the top drawer right in front. But it was hard in the dark, trying that in the dark. So kind of if you wanted to test it out, close your eyes. If you had to close your eyes in your office, could you find the things where you think they're at, where you know you've put them? And if you can't, maybe you want to move it. I've seen some where they have the flashlights where it has the metal magnets so they can attach it right on the door frame. An easy thing. Different things are to the desk, whatever it might be, but you want to be able to easily find it in the dark. Okay, so different kinds of flashlights. This is just a regular one. Hand crank, these actually work really well. Doesn't take a whole lot of effort, and they can, the light actually lasts for quite a long time. You get the blinking, you get the more intense, the less intense, so that's a good option. You don't have to worry about batteries with that. The glow sticks, you can buy those, and those actually last up to 12 hours, so that's a good backup for your flashlight if you have batteries and your batteries go out. Another good option is the headlamp. Again, because that keeps you hands-free. And this is actually what I have in my car, is a headlamp one. And you can get this for like about $20 at the hardware store. What are you wearing? Okay, what do you wear to work? If you're wearing even flat shoes like I am today, or dress shoes or any kind, are they going to be comfortable for the long haul? Or if you're wearing heels? What you really want to have is these grubby tennis shoes, okay? You want to think comfort. So after an earthquake happens, what we want to think about is comfort level, because there might be things we have to move around or attend to things, and we're not necessarily going to be comfortable, and we don't know how much debris will be on the floor as well. There might be some broken windows, glass, anything that we don't want to cut ourselves, and so you think about comfort. So not only comfort in shoes, but comfort in your clothing, okay? In a skirt, I may not be able to do as much, but in my truck, I have a sweatshirt, sweats, a grubby t-shirt, and my socks and tennis shoes. I may not look fashionable, but I'm going to be much more comfortable, and I'm going to last for 3 days or so, however long I have to walk home in order to getting home safely. So think about what you have in your car, or if you want to keep it in your office, that's fine too. Cash. Cash is important to have on hand with you, particularly if you're going to be walking or trying to drive home. And what's recommended is that you have small bills, 1s, 5s, 10s, because you're not going to be, being able necessarily to make change, to be able to buy, give you exact change. You're probably just going to be giving a bill a direct change. So if it's $20 bills, you're not necessarily going to be getting change back. But have some cash with you. Medications, essential to have extra of your medications, particularly at least 3 days, if not more. But you want to have whatever essential medications you normally take, whether it's for whatever health conditions you may have, something that you take on an ongoing basis, especially if it's a daily medication, blood pressure medication or things like that. You want to have enough with you. You don't have to have it, but a radio is a great tool. Because that's where you're going to get your information about what's going to happen. How widespread is this? That's where you're going to hear the information about routes home. Are certain freeways closed already? What's being open? Any information about fires or detours or things like that. You're going to get that from the radio. So obviously you can use your car radio. That'll provide much information, but having an extra radio, particularly if you're walking, would be essential as well. Different kinds, some with batteries, something just a portable transistor radio is fine. This happens to be a hand crank one. That's a great one. Another kind, you'll see a dual where it is a radio, a light, and hand crank. Even better because you have light with it. And there's also, some of you may have seen the ones that have an outlet for you to be able to plug in your phone to recharge your phone as well. So it's just hand crank and recharging that. So what other kind of things do we want? Paper pencil for leaving our note on the car. Maps, if you think you might be walking, always have a good area map and street map so that you know. So either Thomas guides are great if you still have any of those, but you're also just a regular old street map. Take out a paper map. That's good to have. Again, all our electronics, our GPS and everything are great, but if the systems go down or towers go down and we're not getting reception, it's not going to do us any good. Part of our plan is having an out-of-state contact person. Who can you call in the event of emergency? Because that's the person you're going to call out of state, and they're going to have all the information. So when you call, they can tell you, yes, your mom called or your wife called, or I haven't heard from them, and who's heard from what, and having that. How many of you do have an out-of-state contact? Most of you, good. Or at least someone out of the area that you can think of that you can get a hold of. Okay, so some other basic things are, if you can have a fire extinguisher in your car, in your trunk, that's a good thing to have. Because again, a lot of the aftermath of the damage of the earthquake is really going to be not from buildings collapsing, but from fires. There is expected to be a lot of fires, and so putting out small fires is a lot better than waiting until they become large fires and you're unable to deal with that. But basic, it's very easy. Think of pass, pull the pin, aim at the base of the fire. So I'm aiming at the base, squeeze the lever, and sweep from side to side. So you're going to that base of the fire. Very easy to use. How many of you drive into work on fumes sometimes and say, okay, I got to work on time, I'll get gas afterwards, okay? Okay, most of us have done that at least one point in time. But the recommendation is actually to keep at least half a tank full so that you're continually filling up, but you have enough gas. After a large disaster earthquake, we're not necessarily going to have access to gas. And so even though you may be able to drive home, you're only going to get as far as enough gas that you have. But your cars also might be a shelter for you, depending on the weather. It could provide warmth. It can provide radio, okay? And you need all of these, you need gas in your car to make your car run and get the things you want to use your car for. So. Okay, what about your family? Even though we're not talking about family preparedness right now, we're talking about personal preparedness. Knowing that your family is taken care of or know what to do in the event while you're away is also an essential piece of it, because you're going to be worried about your family, your kids, your parents, whoever it might be, that your loved ones, unless you know that they have a plan in place and they're following their plan as well, and eventually you'll all reunite. Okay. If you look at this website, actually has a very good plan. I have a few copies that I'll give out afterwards, but this one, it's probably the easiest plan that I've seen to read. And what it talks about, it's about, what is it, 38 pages. So that is the website that you can download it. It doesn't say anything different than all the other plans and the things I have in place. But what I like about this one is that it breaks it down and it tells you, okay, water care, what can you use? You know, if you're using bleach, what kind of bleach, shows you pictures, how to turn off your gas. But then in the event, a lot about preparedness, but then it also tells you about, okay, so an earthquake has happened. What do you do in the first 2 hours? These are the things you do. These are your priorities. From hour 2 to hour 6, these are your next priorities. And what do you do? So it really breaks it down. So I have a copy of this just in a notebook with our emergency supplies at home. And I have a copy in our house as well, just in a notebook, so that my kids could say, oh, this is what I'm supposed to do during these hours, okay? And so again, it's just a great reminder, very easy, very simple to be able to understand and to follow. Okay, so now we've covered preparedness, being prepared. So let's go on to what are you going to do during an earthquake, and we'll play the video.
This video shows you what you should do in different situations as soon as an earthquake happens. The best way to be safe is to drop, cover, and hold. As soon as you feel an earthquake, drop down to the floor. Earthquakes are totally unpredictable. It could be a big one, so get down on your hands and knees before you're thrown to the ground. This protects you from falling, but also allows you to move if necessary. The next thing to do is to take cover. Cover your head and neck and your entire body, if possible, under a sturdy table. If there's no shelter nearby, get down near an interior wall or next to low-lying furniture that won't fall on you. Protect the back of your head and neck with your arms and hands. The shaking of an earthquake will probably move things around, so hold on until the shaking stops. In a major earthquake, it's absolutely vital that people respond immediately. Confusion about what to do can result in people being seriously injured or killed. Do not run outside. Trying to run in an earthquake is dangerous as the ground is moving and you can easily fall or be injured by flying debris or glass. Running outside is especially dangerous as glass, bricks, or other building components may be falling. You're much safer to stay inside and shelter in a safe place. What about doorways? Just keep in mind that in many modern homes, doorways are no stronger than any other part of the structure and may not be a safe place to shelter. They may also have doors that could swing and injure you. Plan ahead for various scenarios. Look around you now. Identify safe places, such as under a sturdy piece of furniture or against an interior wall and away from windows and tall items that could fall on you. And that safe place should be no more than a few steps or less than 3 meters away to avoid injury from flying debris. An immediate move to the safe place can save lives. If you're inside a building, move no more than a few steps, drop, cover, and hold. In most buildings in New Zealand, you're safer if you stay where you are until the shaking stops. Stay indoors until the earthquake is over and you're sure that it's safe to exit. If you're in an elevator, drop, cover, and hold. When the shaking stops, try and get out at the nearest floor if you can safely do so. You never know where you'll be when an earthquake happens. If you're outdoors when the shaking starts, move no more than a few steps away from buildings, trees, streetlights, and power lines, and then drop, cover, and hold. If there's nothing to cover under, drop down, protect the back of your head and neck with your hands, and hold that position till the shaking stops. If you're at the beach or near the coast, drop, cover, and hold in case you're knocked over by the shaking. Then move inland or to higher ground immediately. A tsunami may follow the shake. Stay away from the beach until civil defence authorities give the all clear. If you're driving, pull over to a clear location. Stop and stay there with your seatbelt fastened until the shaking stops. Once the shaking stops, proceed with caution, but avoid bridges or ramps that may have been damaged. If you're in a mountainous area or near unstable slopes or cliffs, be alert for falling debris or landslides. In an earthquake, wherever you are, drop, cover, hold. It could save your life.
So the other handout you have is recommended earthquake safety actions. And it's basically pretty self-explanatory, but it does talk about what if you're in a wheelchair, what if you're elsewhere. You know, again, finding some place to drop, cover, and hold on. Those are the main things. Some of you may have heard, I've heard people ask about, well, what about the triangle of life? Have any of you heard of that? Okay. It is not recommended. Some of the things that they have you would do could cause you more harm. And plus the credibility of the person who's doing this has also been questionable as well. So I ask you, if you have heard about it, really you want to follow what's best research-based is drop, cover, and hold. Okay, so now we have our guy here. What are you going to do when it comes to the Great Shakeout on the 17th? Sometimes people I've seen, when I've been in charge of this drill in other places, people kind of like, oh, okay, you know, kind of fake, all right, I'm kind of getting under my desk. But what are we going to do? We do what we practice. And if we practice to do it correctly during practice, or more likely to do it correctly during the actual event. So I challenge you on the 17th, actually get underneath your desk and hold on. Drop, cover, and hold on, because that's what you want to get used to. Oh, that's what I have to do. So when it actually does happen, you don't even have to think about it. You just know, and that's what you do. So I challenge you to get under. What other kind of things, if you wanted to be more prepared or learn more about it, CPR and first aid training, if you wanted to do that. Also, there's something called Cert Training. Cert Training is called a Community Emergency Response Team. It's taught by many of our local fire departments, and it's great community training. The whole thought behind it is that if the more people in a community that are trained in it, the more able to self-sustain they are and will be safe. Because in the event of the big one, are the police going to be coming to every building, to every business, to every house to say, are you okay, or is everything fine? No, they're not. They're going to be driving by and say, particularly businesses and stuff, and saying, okay, you're on your own, you should be prepared. And are you prepared? And that's going to be determinative, are you personally prepared or not? So, but what CERT training does, it is, I'm trying to think how many hours it is, probably about 20 hours, and usually a nominal fee for that. And what they'll do is they'll train you how to actually do, put out a fire with a fire extinguisher. They'll set up a fire and let you practice doing that. How to do light search and rescue, meaning when is it safe to go in a building or not. Teach you some basic first aid, some how to assess some injuries, okay, how to look at that. They'll also look at just in general, some general safe skills for surviving an earthquake or some type of emergency disaster. And so that's great training. I highly recommend it for anyone if you're interested in it. When I went through it, I said, Dad, come on with me. And so we did a father-daughter bonding time, and I had my dad come with me. So grab someone and take them with you. So during an earthquake, they're at something similar to you guys. So in an earthquake, we would drop, cover, and hold. So I would probably duck right underneath this table, and you would be ducking underneath your chairs. So it only takes a few steps. Again, the big thing is you do not want to be saying, oh, I'll go over there, because the ground is going to knock you off your feet. So if you get down first before you're knocked off your feet, that is the goal. Stay indoors until the shaking stops, and making sure that it's safe for you to exit. Stay away from windows. What about if you're we'll say if you're at home. If you're in your bed at home, stay in bed, put the covers, put a pillow or something over you to protect your head. If you're outdoors, find a clear area that's away from power lines, other buildings or trees or anything like that. And again, drop to the ground. And again, as I said in the video, if you're in a car, pull over, slow down to a clear place, and pull over and wait till the shaking stops. Okay, now, what do we do after an earthquake? Okay, there's gonna be a lot of chaos and things, but you wanna check yourself first of all for injuries. So before you even get up, am I okay? Am I injured in any way? You may be able to check on your coworkers. Follow your work guidelines, and our work guidelines are that we're evacuating when it's safe for us to do so, to evacuate out to your area. And that's important that you evacuate because you are checking in, you're on a list, on someone's list, to check in to make sure that you're accounted for. And so again, part of our security will go around checking to make sure that everyone is accounted for, or that we know that they're not at the work site today. If you can, pitch in, help your coworkers out. Maybe someone twisted their ankle on all the stuff that was blocking their passageway from their desk. They might need some help getting out. If it's possible, if there's a small fire, you're able to put it out, go ahead and put it out. Do you know where there are fire extinguishers? Do you know where there's a small first aid kits in your area? Tom and I, my colleague, we were talking the other day, and I said, oh, we should know where all the fire extinguishers are. He says, oh, you mean the one right outside our office? I never paid attention. But yes, there's one right outside my office again. So knowing where the things are around your office area. If you have a small radio, or you can get into your car, go ahead and listen to what is going on. What's the extent of the injury? Are there any instructions being given by our county? Okay, and then again, you want to expect aftershocks. They are going to happen. Okay, and they may, so if it's a 7.8, we may have something that's a 6 point something, a 5 point something, which can still be, for us, usually a severe earthquake, but it's really a moderate earthquake. So again, what would we do? Drop, cover, and hold on at that time. So if we're outside in the parking lot, that's where you're going to drop, cover, and hold on. You do want to be careful though, because if you're in the parking lot, you're by cars, and there's earthquakes, again, cars are going to jostle as well. So you may not want to stop, drop, and hold on right next to a car, but because you don't want it landing on you or moving over, jumping over you, but again, away from the cars to keep you safe. A lot of it is keeping calm and following your emergency plan. So what is your personal emergency plan? Do you have your state contact who you're calling so the rest of your family members get information about it? Again, and then we talked about when you are released to leave from work, are you going to stay at work or are you going to go? Those are some decisions you'll need to make. Is how, if I live 40 plus miles, how long is it going to take me to get home if I need to walk? Or is it better for me to stay at work until the roads are a little more clear or not? And if you do drive or decide to walk, when's the best time for you to leave? If an earthquake happened right now, and you know, what time will the sun set? How far am I going to get before I'm able to come home, and where will I shelter for the night? So maybe I don't want to start that same day. Maybe I want to spend the night at work, and maybe at sunrise the next morning, that's when I start to leave. Okay, so there's some decisions that you'll need to make, but think about some of those things ahead of time, knowing, okay, if I'm walking home, how far am I able to probably walk, and where might I shelter? Do I have friends along the way that I can shelter with? Or am I going to be on my own and just self-sustaining with me and my little backpack? So those are some things to consider. But follow your plan. So the whole thing is going back to preparedness, and that you're prepared and you've thought about some of these things, what if, and some of these decisions that you might need to make. So again, planning. Failing to plan is planning to fail. So what are you going to do? Are you going to be prepared, or are you going to hopefully not fail?